Scenes like this have been on constant display on our TV screen since Christmas. They are instantly recognisable as having been taken on the Somerset levels just 30 or so miles south of us here in Clevedon. But here in North Somerset, in an area much of which is below sea level, just like the Somerset levels, the flooding has been kept to a minimum. This fact led our Member of Parliament, Dr. Liam Fox, to ask the question, are there lessons to be learned from the management of the North Somerset levels?
The North Somerset Drainage District is split into 3 areas, all of which are below sea level at mean high water spring tides. Up to the north of Clevedon is the Gordeno Valley catchment between Tickenham Ridge and the coastal ridge of Portishead Down. The north area catchment lies here to the south of Tickenham Ridge and extends out to the coast between Clevedon and out across there to the River Congsbury Yeo. The south area lies across the low-lying North Somerset moors and levels inland from way down there in Weston-super-Mare. All 3 of these catchment areas are protected from flooding by the sea defences, by high natural ground and by a network of rivers, reens, drains and other interconnecting watercourses. These predominantly man-made watercourses have provided several hundred years of water control since the Enclosures Acts of the early 19th century. They have succeeded in creating the current, valued wet grassland landscape from a natural marsh and moorland. A reen is a drainage ditch or canal used to turn areas of wetland at around sea level into useful pasture. They represent an early method of swamp or marsh drainage. Large sections of swampland were surrounded by trenches deep enough to drain the water from the encircled mound and leave the land relatively dry. Today, the reens are still part of an effective method of maintaining the water levels and hence the level of the water table. They are controlled by a system of sluice gates, allowing the land to become wetter at times of the year when this will improve grass growth.
I work for the North Somerset Levels IDB. I used to be known as the viewer for the old North Somerset board. I'm now known as the Reen Supervisor.
And what are you going to show us today?
What I'm going to show you today is a tilt weir here and how we operate it. And it controls the water levels in the moor.
How often do you do this?
Depending largely on the weather. If we would get a very wet time, I would come out and lower it. We operate this one mainly to keep a drop of water here in the winter so that the ditch doesn't dry out.
Is this the only one that you do?
No, we got about 35.
And just with you doing them?
Yes.
Regular clearing and dredging is necessary to keep the reens clear of debris so that they flow freely And this is the job of the North Somerset Levels Internal Drainage Board, which has a supervisory role relating to all matters concerned with the drainage of the land. The board consists of water management experts, local councillors, and the landowners and farmers themselves. Their principal role is to manage water levels in the strategic arterial drainage system, particularly during summer months, to maintain an adequate water supply for agricultural purposes and wetland conservation, and in winter for land drainage and flood defence. The balance between these, sometimes conflicting functions, can be very fine, and present management practices have evolved from close cooperation between the board, the farming community, and the needs of those living in the urban areas served over many years. Farmer Nigel Cole, who is a member of the board, explained to us how it works.
As a landowner board member, I like to sort of think I keep an eye on things, what's happening in the locality, and if there's any problems, I will report back to the viewer, who's in charge of the sluices, and also any problems which may arise with blockages, etc. As you can see, at the moment the reeds are at winter penning levels. That means they're down below the mark on the side of the reen, which you could probably pick out as summer penning level. They will probably be penned in next month when the weather gets a bit better, but the winter level has been like this since probably the end of October. There's quite a network of reens, and mainly it's the viewer's job to check them out, and I'm just as a board member, I go to board meetings and we discuss issues regarding the area, not just Kingston but the general north and south area, as well as Gordana Valley.
And as a farmer, you're responsible for the drainage on your own land.
Yes, I am, yeah.
So what does that involve for you?
Well, we have to keep, we keep our own ditches clean. That's in our own interest to keep our ditches clean. But crucially, we would not want our neighbours' land to flood. So if we have any neighbours whose land adjoins our land, whose water has to go through my land to get to the reen, then I would do my best, or any other landowner would do their best to keep the ditches clean. Ideally, ditches will be cleaned every 25 years at least. The board is financed by precepts from the farmers who own agricultural land and other landowners. That's called the agricultural rate. And also the council, there's a precept on the council tax for North Somerset, and they pay, and that goes into the budget as a board. The costs, then that budget is worked out for the year on structures, wages for the viewers, engineers, etc. And we also pay a precept to the EA.
In the Gordana Valley catchment, water level management is the responsibility of the Environment Agency, as the control structures are all on the main rivers. The agency also has control of the rivers in our area. The Land Yo is Clevedon's river, flowing into the town from the Tickenham Valley. It passes right through the lower part of the town via culverts such as this one at Queen Square. In places, there are some delightful walks to be had along its banks. It finally flows out into the sea at the Clevedon Pill through a controlling sluice. The Blind Yo, the word yo is a West Country word for watercourse or river, was built in the late 1940s. It enters the Clevedon area to the south of the town and drains the large conurbation built in the 1970s on land that lies on or just above sea level. The Blind Yo also flows out into the Bristol Channel at the Clevedon Pill, again through a controlled sluice. Further south again is the Congsbury Yo,
marking the boundary of my parliamentary constituency of North Somerset with that of my colleague John Penrose in Weston-super-Mare. The Congsbury Yeo passes out into the sea through an Environment Agency maintained sluice here at Kingston Seymour. The responsibility for maintenance at all other local watercourses, including the field ditches, rests with the adjoining landowner, known in law as the riparian owner.
The long-term cooperation that has existed between local farmers here and those responsible for drainage in the area has resulted in an effective and efficient flood management programme. Whilst there are important differences, including the extent of the land and the distance from the sea, it's worth noting that while the South Somerset levels are underwater, the North Somerset levels here remain relatively dry. Perhaps there are lessons that can be learned from the excellent cooperation we have here with the local farmers who keep the reens clear and the flexible arrangements that exist with the Environment Agency. This is Liam Fox for Clevedon News here at Tickenham Church, high above the North Somerset levels.
Clevedon Gardeners Club's 56th Spring Flower Show was an outstanding success. The sun shone outside, and this was reflected by an equally bright display of spring flowers inside the Prince's Hall. There are also impressive displays of craft items, cakes, jams and preserves, as well as a high standard in photographic entries. After many years of being described as a blot on the seafront, it is obvious that something is finally happening to the Royal Pier Hotel. Although from the roadside view, all there is to see is a tall yellow crane and some men in hard hats. But a brief stroll down the pier reveals that the work is indeed starting on the building of the new luxury apartments that have been promised on the site for several years now. And just in case you had forgotten what the proposed development is going to look like, here are the architect's latest drawings. So watch this space, preferably during a promenade down the pier, so that they can raise some much needed cash to realise their building ambitions.
Mandy and I had a chat about our love of fabric, and Mandy had heard about a charity called Dress a Girl Around the World that had developed a really simple dress pattern, and we wanted to run with it and go and have fun and invite people to join us to make clothes for children who really don't have any nice clothes at all. And with our fabulous links to Uganda as well at church, it seemed the perfect opportunity to get sewing and make some brilliant things. So today we've had a fabulous day with lots of people come, and they've brought fabric with them and sewing machines and ironing, and it's been brilliant. And we're making dresses and we're making shorts from recycled t-shirts as well for little boys too.
23 members of the Christchurch community turned out to make the clothes, which were being made for two Ugandan charities, the Ugandan Women's Concern Ministry and the Dress a Girl Around the World charity. And the plan is that two members of the group, Jill Robinson and Sarah Parker, will fly out to Uganda later in the year with the 50 or so garments that were made during the session.
So this is one of our simple pillowcase dresses that we made today. This was from a fabric, but the simple pattern can be made from a pillowcase too. And the yellow ones even were started by a local brownie pack, and then we've been finishing off this morning.
Film units in Clevedon seem to be two a penny nowadays, but this one is different.
Ready? Go, go, go.
This is a university film unit making a short love film that will be the culmination of their degree course. And like true professionals, they repeat the takes time after time until they get it just right.
Morning! Sorry?
Another day, another location. And as in the real filmmaking world, every person has their own designated role. The producer, the one who sorts out the logistics of the shoot, is local girl Amy Holland, so it seemed natural for her to want to make the film in her hometown.
We are here in Clevedon filming our graduation film for the University of the Creative Arts in Farnham. I'm the producer, Amy Holland. I'm the local girl that brought the film crew here.
Scene 6, shot 39, take 4.
The short film's about a guy called Charlie who works in a dead-end job on a cafe, and he meets this girl when he was younger, Mona, who gets taken away, moved away, and she's back, and every day he gets closer to meeting her, and turns out that love isn't always perfect, and she's already married, and all that time he spent for nothing, basically.
Cut. Alright, let's get a shot.
Yeah, ready?
Yep.
Rolling. Scene 15, shot 19, take 4.
During the filming of this scene, the cry went out that an extra was needed. Someone to act as a customer in the cafe. That's the producer's job, to find a volunteer. So Amy turned to someone who was working on the pier to fill in the role. The children featuring in the movie were easy to come by. The producer's relatives fitted the bill exactly.
One, go, and action.
So were there any other locations?
Made it all in Clevedon. It's all based around the seafront and filmed in Westerly Road next to the Sports Centre.
And how do you finance this? I mean, does the university pay for it? Or?
No, we finance this ourselves. We did raise some money through Kickstarter, which we raised £750, and the rest of it we put our own money into it.
And what will happen to it?
It will get shown to the teachers first, and then hopefully festivals and on to the Oscars eventually.
Right. Maybe in the local cinema?
Yeah, we're going to try and get it in the Curzon cinema. I'm going to make some phone calls over the next few weeks and see if they'll show it. A lot of members of the public have asked if it could be shown in the Curzon, and it will be on the internet eventually on YouTube and other public websites that people can watch it on.
And how long is it going to be?
It's going to be up to 15 minutes, potentially 20, depending on how the edit goes.
And this is the last shot?
This is the last shot with our children, local children. We've tried to keep it Clevedon based. Got Connie Shelton and Joseph Campion from St John's Evangelist School. And they are doing a tracking shot.
Scene 3, shot 23, take 4. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, action. Cut. Lovely.
I say, in this new feminist world of yours, do you suppose that women will be allowed to do some of the paying?
Certainly.
Really? Oh, next time you're looking for someone to chain themselves to Mr. Asquith, you can jolly well call on me.
The Clevedon Players' next production, Terence Rattigan's The Winslow Boy, was written in 1946. It is based on an actual incident that took place at the Royal Navy College, Osborne, on the Isle of Wight. It tells of a 14-year-old cadet, Ronald Winslow, who is accused of the theft of a 5-shilling postal order and of his father's concerted effort to clear his son's name.
The Daily News. Mr. Winslow, so good of you to see me.
Not at all.
You seem surprised to see a lady reporter. I know, and yet, why not? What could be more natural?
What indeed? Pray, take a seat.
My paper usually sends me out on stories which has a special appeal to women. You know, stories with a little heart, like this one. A father's fight for his little boy's honour.
I venture to think that this case has rather wider implications than that.
Ah, yes, the political angle. I know, very interesting, but not quite my line of country. Now, what I'd really like to do is to get a nice picture of you and your little boy together. I brought my assistant and camera. They're in the hall. Where is your little boy?
My son is on his way back from school. His mother is fetching him from the station.
Hello, Father.
Hello, Ronnie.
I say, Father, Mr. Moore says I needn't come back until Monday if you like, so that gives me 3 whole days.
Mind my leg.
Sorry, Father, is it bad?
Yes, it is. How are you, my boy?
I'm absolutely top hole, Father. Mother says I've grown an inch.
Ah, now that's exactly the way I'd like to take my picture. Oh, could you hold it, Mr. Winslow? Fred, come in now, will you?
Who's she?
That's the pose I'd like.
Yes, it'll do. Ronnie. This is my son, Ronald. Ronnie, this is Sir Robert Morton.
How do you do?
He's going to ask you a few questions. I want you to answer them truthfully, as you always have done. Would you like us to leave the room?
No, provided, of course, you don't interrupt. Miss Winslow, will you sit down, please? And now, would you stand at the table facing me? Now, Ronald, how old are you?
14 and 7 months.
You were then 13 and 10 months old when you left Osborne, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Right, what
Now
else
I'd
can I
like you
say?
to cast your mind
Oh, yes.
back.
Now, I'd like you to cast your mind back to July the 7th of last year. Would you tell me in your own words exactly what happened to you on that day?
All right. Well, it was a half holiday, so we didn't have any work after dinner. At least until prep at 7. Just before dinner, I went to see the Chief Petty Officer.